Are you having a difficult time getting your purchases through? You're struggling because you're trying to maybe juggle refinance business and purchase business? I'm gonna share with you in this video one of the main reasons why I think mortgage bankers, especially working from a call center, are having issues dealing with pre-approvals.
Yeah, you supermodel thing. Ass busting out the bottom. I'ma lose my money in it.
Refinance has its own speed, and a purchase transaction has its own speed, right? So case in point, like, you know, a loan officer today, if your business was primarily purchase business and you're doing a bunch of pre-quals or pre-approval letters, you know, you can't necessarily go into the office and say, I'm gonna get 2 locks today, like as if you were a refinance agent, again, because they're both on 2 separate speeds. And so I want to share some information with you. I just got out of an amazing training that was led by my VP that kind of reflected from an eagle view, right? Because you're looking at mass amount of numbers of purchase leads and then pre-approvals, and then we study the KPIs. So of course, a part of that process is pre-approval to lock, and then lock to fund, right? And so looking at the analytics and looking at the data, what we're noticing is that, or at least I've also noticed it firsthand, is it's difficult to adjust the speeds, especially if you're a refinance agent that needs business right now, like you're used to moving at one particular speed. But in this industry right now, it's going to be in your absolute best interest to understand both speeds. And so I'm going to share with you both speeds, okay? So first and foremost, if you're doing a lot of purchase pre-quals or pre-approvals and you're having an issue with maybe getting them back on the phone or them coming back to you when you get pre-qualified, you have to really consider the engagement. And I'm going to compare it to refinances because I think refinances is something that you could probably relate to. But when you deal with a refinance, the immediate engagement, you're guiding them along, right? Like you're quickly going through the assessment so that you could prep them for a pitch, get the commitment, lock, and then pass the baton on to processing. This is somewhat, the process of a refinance in a nutshell. Whereas a pre-qual or pre-approval just depends on who you're dealing with. And a lot of times you're dealing with people who never bought a house before, who want down payment assistance. You're dealing with people who want to buy the $500,000 house, but they only make 20 grand a year. You want to deal with the people that, that are qualifying for VA loans, that are applying for VA loans, but they're not even eligible for VA. And so we have this wide array of an audience where they need information. I just want us to take a step back and just realize that is your number one asset, is your number one goal, is to position yourself not only as a master of your art, right? Like an expert. You are the consultant, you're not the salesman. You're already gonna set yourself apart from the rest. But more importantly, I want you to consider this. If you happen to be a homeowner, you want to relate to them as a homeowner. And so I digress. So the first engagement, in comparison to like a refinance with a purchase, what you're really doing is you're trying to funnel them and just identify whether or not they're worth your time. Because the last thing you want to do is collect pre-qualification letters or collect different files or mass amount of leads that someday will buy, right? Like you have to have some sort of priority, a schedule in place where you gotta be able to identify what is cold, what's warm, and what's hot. And you have to identify which pocket of leads you really need to give your time towards. Because truth be told, it's just like the refinance business, where you're gonna have some agents who are chasing wood. Like the people don't even qualify. They don't qualify and they shouldn't qualify. But what happens sometimes in our industry and even in refinance, you find yourself chasing wood. So you're spending a lot of time on these pals that don't deserve your time. Instead, filter out and find out who's really worth your time. And you're gonna know this by establishing some sort of relationship inside your engagement. And so in other words, if you're talking to them, right, and you're finding out that they want to buy this $300,000 house, $400,000 house, and you're getting to learn about them to see what they qualify for, and then you give them a step of list conditions, and then they ask you, well, do I have to send my income, or do I have to do all that? Can't you just tell me what the payment would be? They're not necessarily priority, right? Like, so they're not, obviously they're just shopping, and the last thing you want to happen is just to be used as an advertisement. And so I want you to do this. I want you to pay attention to how many people you actually talk to per day with regards to purchase, and identify the tonality that they bring towards you. So you can identify who's just dipping their toes in the water to maybe think about it. They might even tell you, right? Oh yeah, we're not going to be buying for about 6 months. On the flip side, they might be telling you whatever you want to hear, so they get the answer from you. You see, these buyers, they're salesmen too. These consumers, they're salesmen too. They're going to sell you as to why they're not going to use you. They sell refinance agents all the time. They sell refinance agents as to why they're not going to buy. But see, we sometimes forget that they're salesmen. And so when they tell us, oh yeah, I'm looking to buy this house, we only think about our sales side of it. We only think about, oh man, it's gonna be a great rip. Man, my manager's on me for these numbers. Shit, I need this business. And what happens is we actually just end up kind of digging a hole that it takes time for us to climb out of. And so when you're going into your conversation about purchase or pre-qual, it's important that you do a few things. Number one is you have to dummy it down, and you have to build up the picture that they're about to get into a process that's very complicated. And fortunately, you being the expert, the subject matter expert, you being the professional, you are going to give them the protection they need, right? It's very similar to like having an attorney or a good accountant. Like, you have a good accountant on your side to ensure that you're protected. And in their case, when you're going into buying a home, for example, you want to make sure that they're protected before they emotionally invest themselves into a property. They plan the movement, they cancel the utilities, right? There's a lot of movement that happens when you pick up your family or you pick up your life and you move to a new house, or maybe the next house. It just depends on their situation, but that's the key takeaway, is you need to identify them as a person. So in all reality, it's no different than a refinance lead, but in perspective, it is a lot, because there's just more context, there's more a little bit more hand holding. But if you have the patience to do the diligent work up front, and pay mind to the tonality, pay mind to how they treat you, how do they respond? Are they really about buying a house, or are they just using you to check out because they maybe, they may saw a commercial like, hey, buy a home now. So there's this mass amount of marketing that's going out for purchasing homes, right? And over the last 2 or 3 years, anyone on earth has seen the pickup on real estate. And so you're seeing property values go up. And so from a consumer standpoint, even from accountants recommending like, hey man, you need more write-offs, go buy a house. And with these new flexible programs where you get down payment assistance, everyone's being influenced to buy a house. Who doesn't want to buy a house? But the issue is that when they call, most lenders will pick up the phone and make it seem super easy. Like, oh yeah, I'll get you pre-qualified right away. So, work up an application, put an hour of their time into it, send them out some fucking half-ass letter, and then never hear from them again. Is because you gave them too much information right up front. You served the purpose that they needed you for, and they're out. So what are a few things that you can do is you can prepare them, and you can build a little bit more exclusivity about your offer. Maybe your offer is an actual pre-approval versus a pre-qualification. Do you know the difference? Like, a pre-approval is basically as good as money. It's as good as cash, because your documents have been reviewed, your income has been verified, your assets have been verified. Whereas a pre-qual, you can get a pre-qual in a template. You get a pre-qual for free online, right? But a pre-qual has no weight. A pre-qual doesn't show a seller's agent that you have the necessities, the qualities needed to consider your offer over the next person's offer. And so this is where the kind of that fear comes in, that you can position yourself as the protector of. And so you could do it through storytelling. and saying, hey, you know, the reason why a lot of new homeowners or new home buyers or home shoppers prefer to work with me is because I make sure that there is a bridge to stand on to get you from where you are now into the new home. Because what I have found is by operating this way, the last thing you want for yourself is to have a loan fall apart 25 days into escrow, because that's too late. Sometimes you lose your earnest money deposit. Sometimes you already got your things packed up and in storage or out of storage. And the last thing you want to do is find out that there's no home that you're gonna go into, right? And then you're kind of caught in the middle. Where are you gonna stay? So to avoid that nightmare, what I have found is that by issuing what we call a pre-approval letter that's actually reviewed by underwriting, I'm giving you basically a certificate that's as good as cash.
Here's what you call a flip. 10 keys from a car to brick. Bentley from his mama whip. KOD, he hard as